Let us welcome to the session on data preprocessing. Data preprocessing is one of the mechanisms to handle and to clean the data and make the data into a structured format. In this particular session, we are going to cover the topics about introduction to data preprocessing, how to handle the missing data, what are the mechanisms to handle the missing data, how to handle the categorical way data, and the label encoding and one-hot encoding, followed with the practice of standardization of the variables. Without delay, let us move into the session of introduction to data preprocessing. Data preprocessing is the mechanism of cleaning the data. Data preprocessing is carried out when the data constitutes the missing values, the null values, categorical data, and the normalization or the variables are on the different scales. So hence, to go ahead with this, so how to handle the null values? Generally, what happens is the null values are treated as the empty cells. So generally what happens is if there are no null values in the data, the Python understands that it is a value of NaN or 0. Right? So there's a mechanism to find it out the number of null values in the data. Now, coming out to the missing values. So before we enter into the missing values, let us go ahead and understand how to handle the null values in Python. Coming to the session on handling of the missing values. Missing values are the cells where the data is not being captured under a particular variable. The mechanism to handle the missing value can be adopted by using the measures of central tendency. Depending on the type of the variable, the missing variables are to be handled. Now, there is a mechanism followed to handle the missing values. Now, what do I mean by this? For example, you might have captured the data in rows and columns, specifying the row as the student name, and the marks obtained by the student, and the bachelor's or the age of the student. Now, let us assume that you are capturing the data for 100 students. Now, some of the students have not filled the age column. Out of 100, some of them have not filled the age column. So those type of data are called as missing data. Now, how to handle this missing data? Now, let us assume out of 100 students, around 6 students have not filled the age column. So in such a case scenario, if you look at the percentage of the missing data, the percentage of the missing data is less than 10. So hence, whenever there is a percentage which is of less than 10, then you need not replace the missing values. Depending on the data size, estimate what is the percentage of the missing values, and if the percentage of the missing values is less than 10%, then you can delete these missing values and go ahead with the further analysis. Now, there might arise a question saying that what if the missing data is not less than 10%? For example, let us assume out of 100 students, around 30 students have not given you the details about their age. So in such a case, what we do is we try to impute the missing values. Now, how do I impute the missing values? The imputation of the missing values can be done using any of the measures of central tendency like mean, median, or mode. Right? Now, there is a question, one more that arises. When to use mean, when to use median, and when to use mode. So this has a logical flow to be adopted with. That we will be seeing in the next session. Till then, happy learning. Now let us go ahead and understand how to handle the missing values. For example, let us assume a bank is capturing the data related to the customers. And the columns that are being captured by the bank includes the customer ID, the name of the customer, the street in which he resides, the income of the customer, age of the customer, and the number of dependents. So these are the columns that are being captured by a bank. Let us assume that the bank has captured the data of 100 customers. Now, out of 100 customers, let us assume that the street of the customer, so the column street, has maximum missing values of around 60 missing values. So in such a case, this particular variable doesn't carry any meaning in taking into a further analysis. So hence, what you can do is you can delete this particular column. Okay. Now, let us assume that here I have the income missing values of around 30 customers. So as I said that there are more than 10% of the missing values here. So hence we need to treat these missing values. In order to treat these missing values, I have to use either the mean, median, and mode I cannot use most frequently occurring, so or mode. Of course, let us decide which one to use here. Right? And in the age column, correspondingly around 35 customers have given us the missing values. We did not capture. And hence this variable also needed to be treated. So here also we need to decide whether we are going to use mean, median, or mode. So under the number of dependents also, I do have around 40 missing values. So hence these missing values are to be decided whether to be treated or not to be treated. Now coming to this particular column of income. So whenever I just wanted to treat these missing values, generally what I said, we do something called as imputation. So that means you need to fill up the missing values either with any of these measures of central tendency. So what I can do, I can see that average income of the customers when their age is 30 to 40 years. That means what I'm doing here, I'm comparing with another variable and I'm treating this. So in such a case, I'll be using mean. Or else I might also use median, finding it out if the particular sample is from a homogeneous group. So I will find it out what is the median salary, and above the median or below the median, I'll be using to treat these missing values. Here, mode might not be one of the good measure to use these missing values because mode is very well suitable whenever your data is categorical in nature. Now coming to the age. So when it comes for the age values, either in the same way, I can use the mean or median to impute the age factor, or even sometimes mode too. When it comes for the number of dependents, 40 missing values. So now what do I mean by number of dependents? So those who depend on the income of the person. For example, if a father is the head of the family, then the children and the parents would be the dependents over here. So in this case, what happens is treating the missing values would not be a right mechanism to go ahead with. That means if you replace these missing values with mean, median, and mode, so those who don't have the children will also turn to have a children over here. Right? So hence, this particular variable cannot be treated by using any of the measures of the central tendency and along with comparison with certain other columns. Right? So hence, you have to be cautious while treating the missing values. First, find it out what kind of variable it is and what is the role of that particular variable in the analysis, and then go ahead and treat the missing values. Further, in the next session, we will be learning about how practically we can implement these missing values on Python. Till then, happy learning. Data normalization. Normalization is a mechanism of scaling all the variables on one particular scale. For example, let us assume that we have the data which is being captured for the customers, where the columns that are being captured include the customer name, gender, age, number of products bought by this particular customer, the income, and whether a customer will churn or will not churn. Let us assume this is what is being captured when it comes for the customer data. Now, whenever we have this, so if you see here, this is a nominal variable and which is qualitative in nature. Whereas this is also a nominal variable and this is also a qualitative variable, but it has two categories, might be the female and the male. The age can be a numeric variable. Sometimes it can also be taken as a qualitative variable. Okay, so hence this is quantitative. Number of products purchased is again numeric. So hence again this is quantitative. Income, which is numeric, which is quantitative. Churn, it might be 1 or 0. 1 is yes, no is 0. Now if you see here, gender is being measured on a nominal scale. Age is being measured on numeric scale. Number of products is measured on a numeric scale. Income is measured on a numeric. Now, the units of measurement of these particular variables differ, right? So here it can be a 2-digit, which is being measured in years or months. And this is being measured in units. This is being measured in some sort of currency. Now, whenever you have the data like this, you cannot process the data because we already know that in order to process or in order to find the association between the dependent and the independent variables, you need to have a common units across. Right? So hence to do so, what we do is we try to normalize the data. Now, whenever we are trying to normalize the data, we do have the different ways of standardizing the variables. The 3 different ways in which a variables can be standardized falls into 3 different methods. One is the min-max scalar, standard scalar, and the robust scalar. Min-max scalar is used whenever you have the variables ranging from 0 and 1. So if you have more number of nominal variables and numeric variables, then you will scale up all the variables onto a 0 and 1 so that all the variables are on the same units. Coming to the second one, which is called as standard scalar. Standard scalar is one which is used whenever you wanted to normalize the data with mean equal to 0 and standard deviation equal to 1. So this is nothing but your standard normal distribution. Now coming to the robust scalar. Robust scalar is being used whenever you are having outliers in the data. So whenever there are outliers, generally what we do is we use the robust scalar so that it takes care of the outliers, and then you are supposed to go ahead and use min-max scalar or the standard scalar. So these are the mechanisms that are to be adopted to deal with the standardization of the variables. In the next session, we will see how we can implement this practically on Python. Till then, happy learning.